Hello everyone, it's Zeus here from the Zeus Developer Channel. Today, let's do something serverless. So today, let's take a very basic Express node application and deploy it on AWS Serverless platform. We'll use a couple of tools to help us do that, right? Now, why serverless? Because you don't want to provision an EC2 or a VM, right? Just to deploy a basic backend application. I mean, you understand the cost implication of that, all right? But if you use a serverless platform, you're paying as you go. It's when a request is made to your application that you're actually paying, all right? So you're not paying a monthly cost, for renting a server, all right? So we're using AWS Lambda, all right, to deploy our backend application, all right? So the tools we're going to be using here, first, Serverless Express. Let me show you Serverless Express here. This is their GitHub repo, Serverless Express. You could do many things here with this tool. This is a node package, by the way. So, and the second tool here on the AWS side, it's SAM. SAM, it's AWS Serverless Application Model. So it's a serverless tool that would help us build and run serverless applications, of course, on AWS. All right, so we're going to be using these two. All right, so let's look at the code here. If you've been following my last couple of videos, it's the same application we're using. So I think this is the state we left it in. So the changes I've made here now, this is your basic node application. Let me go down here. This is a basic node application. All right, we have just three endpoints. The first one is more like a status endpoint to check if things are working. The second, it's second is supposed to be a get users, that would fetch users from a database, and then the third one, it's a post where you could create a additional user records. Right, simple. All right, so let's test it out. All right, but before we do now, let me show you. Of course, those of you who write a backend application with Express, you call the app here, you call the listener here. But for this to incorporate or integrate this serverless tool, I had to move out that listener function, right, from this place. All right, so I've taken it to a different file. All right, I'm sure all of you understand this. So this listener function is not in the main code anymore. I've taken this out to a different file because the tool won't need that here. All right, the tool will need this listener in this file. Right, so this file is only when I want to call this application locally, or maybe on an instance. All right, so I took this out, but let's see that everything is still working as it should. There's a build, and then there's a start script. So we're already in this project here. So if we run build, it will build application. We'll have the build folder here. Then it's a TypeScript, of course. So it's a simple TS config. Here I'm building to ES 2019. All right. So we can start our application and check that things are okay. Start, because I have the start script in my package.js in here. So yeah, as you can see now, it's calling this index local JS from the build folder. All right, so app I started on port 5500, which is taken from this environment variable, environment file. This is the ports, so whatever I indicate is where the app will run from. All right, so if we go to this pause on my local host, we should be able to access the application. So let's try that. So local host 5500. All right, so that's the route route or path. Then let's try users, because I mean we've connected to a local database, a local Postgres database that is already running. All right, so we can access the database and pull these records, and then we can also create record. But there's no need to show that. Let's go straight into making this serverless and deploying it on AWS. All right, just close this and stop the app. All right, so what do we need to do? So for us to be able to integrate that serverless package, created a new file called a Lambda TS, right? This is a package, I've already installed it, all right? npm install Codegenia Serverless Express, and then there's another package that they recommend is required, basically, this export map. All right, so it's a 4-5 lines of code file, right? So I import the app here, which is exported here. Where is it? It's exported here. This Express instance was exported here, so I could import it here. Of course, that same thing I imported here to be able to run here. Where is it? Yeah. So imported here, and then I'm basically using a function that was imported from this package, and then running the application here. All right, this is the structure. This is you find this on the GitHub repo as well. So this is what makes an application, all right, work or run on Lambda, basically. All right, so the way it is, we can actually take this, all right, zip it and upload it to Lambda, and we'll have our Lambda app running in Lambda. But we're not going to do that. I mean, as a DevOps engineer, I'm not expected to be going to AWS console and clicking around. All right, we use the infrastructure as code, to make to deploy applications and make things consistent. And if anything goes wrong, all we need to do is update the file and redeploy. All right, so to bring in SAM, all we need to do is create a file, a template file. We'll call it a template.yaml, and I'm actually going to import this, or should we type it out? I'll copy the code and then we'll run through it, so it will be faster that way. Alrighty, so for AWS SAM, the structure, right? You think of it as a subset of AWS CloudFormation. All right, so the template looks almost similar to CloudFormation because it's a subset. All right, but you use it basically for a serverless deployment. All right, meaning that's the Lambda functions, API gateway, DynamoDB, S3 buckets, anything serverless on AWS, you could use SAM for. All right, so resources here is how you indicate which resources you want SAM to create for you. All right, so we've called this one express function. All right, this is just a name we're giving our function. All right, and then the type here, it's a serverless function we want to create. What are the properties? Code URI, the root. All right, handler, that's where this handler function is. This function here, all right, is in a lambda.ts file, and then the function name is handler. That's what we indicate here. All right, it's going to be built first, so this is going to be in the build folder, right? That's why we have a build /lambda /handler, and then we're using what? We're using the runtime is going to be in Node 20 and whatever they have available on AWS 20 point anything. We'll be fine. So timeout 10 seconds, I think is good. Maybe we should take this up to, I don't know, maybe 20. Memory size, it's a basic app, so I'm sure even less than this will work. Even 56 will work. All right, so where we architecture, this is not even necessary, but all right, this environment variables are important. If not, we won't be able to access a database, right? So these are the same environment variables you saw in the .env, but the values are not the same, all right? But we'll come to this. I'll make sure, because the database is running on my local system. When this application is deployed on AWS, I still want you to be able to access the database, because we're not deploying the database yet, right? So to do that, I need to proxy the database, all right, so that it will be accessible publicly, over the internet. So I'm using the ngrok to do that. So, but I'll run a new ngrok and then bring in the value. Maybe we should do that right away. So, all right. So I have the Postgres database running on port 5432. All right. So this is all I need to do. So ngrok will give me a public endpoint I should be able to use to access the database from anywhere over the internet. So the application running on AWS could be able to access my local database, running on my laptop. All right, so let's run this, and ngrok will give us a new endpoint. So look at this here. All right, let me paste it here first, so I'll pick out the components. All right, so the event. All right, so we're integrating this with as an API. Right, we're integrating this with API gateway, AWS API gateway, so that we can make a different type of request. All right. So basically, two events. All right, two API events. One for the root path, because I think this will work, but this is supposed to be the other way around. This is supposed to be the root API, and then this other one, the proxy. But you just name it does not matter anyways. Let me update this. So this root part will take care of the roots. If you don't do this, you won't be able to access that root part that says things are okay. This one works for any other path. As you can see, it's any, and then this is how you define any path. All right, so it will proxy, it will take that request and pass it down to Lambda. All right, if you do a get, if you do a slash users, a slash to do, a slash post, whatever whatever HTTP request you make, all right, API gateway will take it and pass it down to Lambda. And then if you've defined an endpoint, all right, accordingly, all right, if you have that endpoint, of course it would do whatever the endpoint implements. All right, enough talk. I think this is basic enough to go. This will work, of course. So let's we've not saved this file, have we? Yeah, we saved it. So basically we're good to go. This is all we need. Of course, I have the SAM CLI installed. Depending on your system, you would I use the Homebrew, right? Because I use a Mac. Homebrew to install it. I'm sure you should be able to install it some other ways too. And of course, I have AWS CLI configured with a profile, so all of that is taken care of, right? Alrighty, so let's just build this. So the two SAM CLI commands we're going to run are just build and deploy. All right. So let's clear this first. I like to run my commands here. So let's do SAM build. So if your template, all right, if this file is called template, you don't need to indicate it automatically pick it. But if it's different, all right, if you call it something else, that means you have to indicate the name of that by passing the template option. All right, so because we called it a template, we don't even need to do that. All right, so we'll just do some run and hit enter and have this build. But in fact, we're supposed to even use SAM validate to check that there's no mistake here. So SAM validate will help you catch any errors here in your template. But yeah, it's already built. Look at it. It created a .sam, a .aws-sam directory for us. Let's look at this. So in here we have a build, and in the build we have see our function name, see the template, and inside this we have our files here, right, including the build folder. Inside the build folder we have the build file, the TS files that were converted to JS. All right, so we're good. The next thing here is deploy. All right, so we're going to do a guided deploy where we're going to be prompted of different values. All right, let's clear this again first, and then do a SAM deploy. Now, using SAM, you could also test that things are working locally before you even run a deployment, so that you don't deploy and then discover issues. But let's keep all of that because this is too basic, and I've tested it before, so things are working. So we would say, let's say deploy. I will need to pass my AWS CLI profile, which is Zeus, so that to know which credentials to use to access AWS. We don't need anything. I don't mind the other things. So I think this should be good. Hit enter. Oh, I missed something. I said we're doing a guided deployment, but I didn't add the guided flag. So I'll say guided here to access stuff. What do we want to call it? What should we call it? Of course, it's we've been calling this Express for containerized. Yes, US East 1, the region, yes. It says confirm changes before deploy. No need. Just go ahead and we need to create AWS IAM roles, or at least a role. Do you want to allow that? Yes, of course. Do you want to disable rollback? No, we don't want to do that. Say it does not have any authentication. Yes, it should be open. Anyone should be able to access it publicly. Is this okay? Yes, that's I don't. Is this okay? I said yes. What's it? Saving this. Yes. Save this to a SAM config file. Yes. All right. Oh, I also forgot to mention, you need to have your Docker running at this point, because SAM uses Docker to build and deploy your application. Right, so it's doing its thing. It encountered an error. All right, it says password can be null. So what do we do? If we pass empty string, that would work. So of course we need to rebuild. All we need to do is what AWS build again, and then run our deploy this time around, because now look at this. Those values that we entered were saved to a SAM config file. All right, these are the values we entered. Right, so because we have this file now, we don't need to do a guided deployment. All right, that guided deployment would ask you those values, but we have them already, so we'll remove guided flag here and just hit enter. Things are going upstream. All right, guys, so it is done. It successfully created your stack. Right, so remember I said SAM is more like a subset of CloudFormation, so it uses CloudFormation still. All right, so it's CloudFormation that does the deployment, the provisioning of the resources, and managing the app basically. All right, we can see that on AWS. So let's go check. I didn't put an output in my SAM template. If not, you would have seen the API gateway endpoint. But let's go look at least a function. Yep, these are express function, and let's grab the API gateway endpoint. All right, guys, this is the API gateway endpoint. I've grabbed it from API gateway. So let's hit this endpoint, and yeah, the root is giving us what we have there. Let me increase this a bit, and let's do /users. Hopefully we get our user records. Alrighty, so let's also use, let's make a new record and come back and refresh this. So I'll grab this URL, go to my API tool, paste it here. Of course, the post is also /users, so doing a post request, we just need to pass a JSON of name and email, I think. Name John Doe, email is what? john@doe.com. All right, let's hit it. All right, record created. So if you come here and refresh, you should see a third record, I guess. So let's refresh here. All right, this is our new record, john@doe.com. Look at the created time here. Yeah. All right, so basically that's it. So to wrap up, let's go back to, so you could take a basic your Express app. It doesn't have to be basic. Your Express app, and use this tool, this serverless tool, and make it Lambda friendly. So you could deploy it on a serverless platform like Lambda, and then pay less, for your application. Pay for only when a request is made, to your API. All right. Remember, you install these two packages. You'd remove your listener from the main application, from the main code here. Just have your endpoints. All right. Just define your endpoints here, and make sure you're exporting this, and then you bring it to where you define. The thing is, you can actually take this code, take this code and put it here, but you don't want to mess things up, right? So it's good to separate things. Also, because you may need to still run this locally. So just export the main app here. You could have your listener in a different file with the app imported, and then app imported here. You are running it with the serverless function you imported from this application. All right. Remember, whatever you call this function is what you're going to put here. All right, in the SAM template. All right. This is a TypeScript application. That's why we have a build process. If we don't have a build process, if this was not built, we won't have this build here, right? So this is the file name, all right? Lambda as this here, and then .handler. Handler is the function, right? Whatever you call it, make sure these are defined accordingly. Now, this where the environment variables are created. So if we go to our Lambda environment and check environment variables, we see that these variables were created when Lambda function here. Let's go to configuration, environment variables. Yep, look at that. These are the values we entered there. All right, password will pass the empty string. That's why there's nothing here. All right, so guys, that's it. Hope you learned something. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and share, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you and peace.